The United States and China agreed to a framework of a potential trade deal ahead of President Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping later this week, confirms Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He also says that Donald Trump's threat of 100% tariffs on Chinese goods is quote-unquote effectively off the table. The United States also signs a flurry of deals on trade and critical minerals with Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia and Vietnam to address trade imbalances and diversify supply chains amidst tighter export curbs on rare earths by China. Wall Street ended at new highs on Friday following a cooler than expected inflation data, paving the way for more rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. The Dow Jones closed above the mark of 47,000 for the first time. The 10-year Treasury yield hovers around the mark of 4%. Asian markets have also opened higher amidst progress in the US-China trade talks and strong momentum from Wall Street. The Nikkei has surpassed the mark of 50,000 for the first time, surging over 2% at open, while the GIFT Nifty is also indicating a gap up start for our own markets. Crude prices are back at $66 a barrel, while gold prices also declined, marking their first weekly loss in 10 weeks. Dr. Reddy's and SBI Life's second quarter results were a beat on expectations on most parameters, while Kotak Mahindra Bank posted an inline set with its net interest income growing but margins contracting for the second quarter in a row. Good morning. It's a plethora of news flow to track, earnings, global developments. We'll bring you all of that right here on Power Breakfast in the Mumbai News Center in CNBC TV 18. I'm Hormuz Fatakia. Let's first start with how the Asian markets are trading earlier this morning, and it's a positive start. Tracking all the global developments that have taken place over the weekend. Take a look at the move on the Taiwanese index. Now the index is up 2%. The Hang Seng 2 trading with gains of 0.75%. But the actual move is coming from Japan. The Nikkei is up almost 2.5%, currently almost 1,200 points higher on the index, crossing the mark of 50,000 for the first time. And the Kospi in South Korea also seeing similar gains, almost 2.25% higher. The index has been an outperformer through and through in 2025. And that's the Asian screen for you. Green across the board for all of the Asian markets, including China. The Shanghai Composite also trading with gains of around 0.6%. We pull up the GIFT Nifty, give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. And after a bit of a hiccup across the second half of Thursday and on Friday, the implied open is suggesting a gap up start for our own markets. It remains to be seen whether that sustains going into what is a very, very important week, not just for our own markets, but for the global markets as well. To set you up for today's trade, our research team is here with the trade setup. I'll tell you about the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course, Sudarshan sets you up for the FNO side of things as well. First up, Vinny is here to tell us all the market cues that we need to watch out for. Vinny, good morning. What are some of the important things you're keeping an eye out for today?
Hi, Hormuz. Good morning. So firstly, let's just start with the US market of how it closed on Friday and what's the futures looking like right now. When you're looking at the US market, they managed to close with very strong gains in Friday's trading session. Dow rallied as much as 400 points. And obviously, that inflation data that came in, that led to some positive and optimism on the Wall Street. Dow futures today also, when we saw on Sunday's trading session, Dow futures, when they opened, 300 points jump that they saw. And obviously, inflation data as well as possibility of deals coming in for more of these Asian countries with US, given that there's a summit that will be going on. That is something that is keeping the US markets upbeat in the trading sessions. Now, other than that, what are the FIIs doing? FIIs were again buyers in Friday's trading session. FIIs bought 621 crores, while DIIs were also buyers, a 173 crores buy coming in from DII. Important cues that we're keeping an eye out on. Supreme Court hearing is going to be there for Vodafone Idea AGR case. Now, keep an eye on that. We'll see if there's again one more delay or finally any decision comes in here. Commerce Minister, that is Piyush Goyal, will be meeting EU Trade Commissioner in Brussels. So important updates we could watch out from there. As well as, like I said, there's going to be the 20th East Asia Summit. So more updates that will come in from US front, even India front, what's going to be happening there. So keep an eye out on some deals. Earnings today that we're keeping an eye out on, Anani Energy Solutions, Bata India, Chennai Petro, IOC, Indus Towers, PNB Housing are some of the important ones that we're keeping an eye out on. We'll watch out for some reactions that will come in from Kotak Bank, Coforge, as well as SBI Cards as they reported their numbers over the weekend. And do not forget, markets, last week they managed to close with gains, fourth straight week of gains that they saw coming in. Though on Friday, Nifty had failed to hold onto the 25,800 levels. Keep an eye out on that. Nifty implied open, indicating a positive start.
Vinny, thank you for that update. A gap up start is what we are anticipating. Well, since Vinny mentioned a lot of stocks that you need to keep an eye out for, of course, the big one being Kotak Mahindra Bank. Results in line with expectations, but management commentary was more important. They mentioned the fact that they are expecting the NPAs on the credit card and the MFI business to trend downwards going forward, but they remain cautious on the stress that they are seeing in the retail CV segment. But Coforge's results were good. The revenue growth both in the US dollar terms and in rupee terms was in line with expectations. The margins were the highlight. They were a beat on both on a sequential basis. They expanded and a beat on expectations as well. They are seeing a pathway to 14% EBIT margins at the end of the year as well, although they are not saying that they will end the year higher than 14%. They haven't committed to that, but they expect robust growth to continue in the second quarter as well, be it the fourth quarter being the seasonally strongest one for the company. Now, eClerx came out with results. They have also announced a share buyback. Along with those results, it's a 300 crore buyback, but the buyback price of 4,500 rupees is almost the same as a Friday's closing price. So keep that on your radar. Well, Bharat Rasayan, it approved a bonus issue, a 1:1 bonus issue and a 2-for-1 stock split as well. And on similar lines, Dr. Lal PathLabs, the board will meet on the 30th to consider a bonus issue and an interim dividend. Of course, that's also the day where they will declare their quarterly results as well. A host of companies have announced order wins, highlighting some of them. NCC has won orders worth 6,600 crores. Look at EPAC Prefab, Vikran Engineering, both are recent listings. They will react to order wins, GPT Infra as well. And of course, keep an eye out on Vari Energies as its shareholder lock-in period ends today. So that will be a stock that should be on your radar. And lastly, Sudarshan joins in with cues from the FNO space. Now, Sudarshan, good morning. What are some of the FNO data indicating today?
So it's the penultimate day of monthly expiry and Nifty will try its best to get back to the levels above 26,000. But as far as the Friday session goes, we saw selling pressure at the higher levels and at the end it was a close in the red across the board. Now for today, GIFT Nifty is indicating a start with a healthy gain of almost 100 points. As far as flows are concerned, it remains healthy both in the cash market as well as the derivative market. We have seen FIs remain on the buy side. Now FI long exposure has increased to 25%. Also from the options data, the indication that we are getting that now the range for Nifty is between 26,000 on the higher side, on the lower side 25,600. That's the reason support for Nifty would remain around 25,740 first support and resistance would be around 26,104. That's the recent high that Nifty had hit. As far as Nifty Bank is concerned, support would be around 57,430, resistance would be around 58,000. One stock that has come back into the band, that is Sammaan Capital, and sale is also in the FNO band. Some of the stocks that I'll keep an eye on, first one, IEX has been seeing fresh longs, and second one is PNB Housing, also ahead of its earnings today, has been seeing fresh longs.
Yes, keep an eye out for PNB Housing reporting results today. Sudarshan, thank you for that update. And on the earnings front, Kotak Mahindra Bank's results were reported over the weekend. Gaurav is here with the fine print. Gaurav, good morning.
Well, as when we look at Kotak Mahindra Bank, inline set of numbers is what we saw. Net interest income that increased almost by 4% on a year-on-year basis, in line with the street's expectation. When it comes to net interest margins, that declined almost by 11 basis points on a sequential basis. It was a bit lower, but at the same time, OPEX is something which was flat on a year-on-year basis this quarter, and that is the reason why when we look at PPOP, which is pre-provisional operating profit, there we saw a growth of around 3% on a year-on-year basis. Now, when it comes to credit cost, once again, bank reported around 14 basis point of fall in credit cost. In fact, if we look at the calculated credit cost, that declined almost more than 20 basis point. But at the same time, when it comes to profit, now that has declined almost by 3%. It is in line with the street's expectation, but it is actually going to be a bit tricky because from here on, management, although they are saying that in second half, net interest margins are going to expand. When we look at the valuation, Kotak Mahindra Bank always demands a premium in terms of valuation if we compare it with other peers. If you look at some of the positives for this quarter, is that deposit growth that was driven by CASA, because CASA deposits that increased almost by 7% sequentially versus the overall deposit growth of 3%. Second is that when we look at the loan book growth, that was actually highest amongst the peers. It was at around 15.8% and it was already known from its pre-quarterly updates. Third is that when we look at credit cost, management although says that credit cost is likely to decline, now there are some brokerages which are expecting some kind of levers to be missing in coming quarters for ROI upliftment, and that is the reason why we should be watching out on Kotak Mahindra Bank, but inline set of numbers is what they have reported in second quarter.
Keep an eye out on Kotak Bank today. That will be one of those reactions to watch out for. Gaurav, thank you for that. Take a short break. All the global action on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the big cue this week will be US President Donald Trump's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, ahead of which US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that Donald Trump's threat of 100% tariffs on Chinese goods is effectively off the table, hinting at a trade deal soon. Listen into what he had to say.
This was the fifth meeting that I've had with my Chinese counterpart, the Vice Premier, Hu Lifeng, and we covered a wide range of issues, and I think we've reached a substantial framework for the two leaders who will meet in Korea next Thursday. So, on the table, the president had given me maximum leverage when he threatened 100% tariffs if the Chinese imposed their rare earth global export controls. So I think we have averted that, so that the tariffs will be averted. And we have a regular quarterly meeting with the Chinese. It was scheduled for November 10th or before November 10th. I don't think we will have to have that. So we have been rolling the tariffs quarterly. So we agreed on that. We also agreed on substantial agriculture purchases for U.S. farmers. We agreed that the Chinese would begin to help us with the precursor chemicals for this terrible fentanyl epidemic that's ravaging our country. So I would say that it was a very good meeting overall.
Now, at the 47th ASEAN Summit, the United States has also signed a flurry of deals on trade and critical minerals with Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia and Vietnam to address the trade imbalances and diversify supply chains amidst tighter export curbs on rare earths by China. Meanwhile, Donald Trump over the weekend announced an additional 10% tariffs on Canada in response to an advertisement by the province of Ontario that is critical of the levies. And finally, top trade negotiators from the US and Brazil are set to meet today after President Donald Trump predicted the nations could pretty quickly strike a deal as he met with his counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. And let's also now listen to John Woods, the Asia CIO at Lombard Odier, who gives his views on the meeting between the two presidents.
I think we're slightly getting used to the punch first, negotiate second practice that both China and the United States now seem to be participating. As you say, there does seem to have been a pretty comprehensive leak of good news prior to the actual summit, but I suspect there will be one or two more little surprises, opportunities for the presidents themselves to sprinkle a little sugar on the final communique. But certainly the markets seem to be like what they're hearing, and we're seeing a positive response across the region.
It was a positive session on Wall Street as well on Friday, as better than expected inflation prints spurred optimism among investors, and that the Fed will remain on its course for cutting interest rates further. The Dow Jones closed above the mark of 47,000 for the first time, gaining nearly 500 points. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq also saw gains of around 0.8% to well over 1%. All the three benchmarks ended the week on a positive note as well, gaining close to 2%. The September CPI report, which was delayed because of the government shutdown, rose 0.3% on the month, bringing the annual inflation rate to 3%. CNBC's Rick Santelli has this report.
Here's our late but coming out September read on the Consumer Price Index. Headline number up 0.3, 1/10 cooler than both rearview mirror and what we were expecting. And if we look at the stripping out of food and energy known as core, it comes in also a bit less than expected, up 0.2. We were expecting up 0.3. Our last look was up 0.3. Here's the Moneyball numbers. Year over year, 3%. And even though it's less than the 3.1 we were expecting, it's hotter than 2.9. And after all, it's got a 3 handle. And if we look at CPI year over year ex food and energy, it also comes in at 3%. We're also expecting 3.1, but last look was 3.1, so it cooled a bit. So we're seeing interest rates move down and stocks move up. You may be asking why. An easy answer, because it's less than expectations. Is it less than the Fed's target of 2%? No. Which, in my opinion, that fact will rise above all the issues of the day at some point. But yes, we do see rates moving a bit lower. Ultimately, this is a very important number because the market, without any data points, has been pretty much viewed on the notion that the labor market is slowing, and that really is a good thing if you're looking for the Fed cycle to continue its rate cuts. Now, how does this figure in? I can't speak for Fed officials, but if you really have an agnostic view and you look at these numbers, the last thing you think about is we're closing in on the Fed's target.
Rick Santelli, thank you for that update. Let's also listen into some reactions from expert economists on the latest macro data and on what will the Fed do next.
The economy is absolutely holding firm. There's no question about that. I mean, jobless claims are right in that sweet spot, 220, not going up. We saw good data on the S&P Global indexes today. And, hey, earnings, the three most important things, the inflation, the earnings, and the real economy, I am not surprised we are getting all-time highs. I actually think we're at, I think it's 90%. We're going to get 25 again in December. I think that, basically the Fed is going to get down to the mid-threes by the middle or early of next year. And that's where it should be, in my opinion. I've said that for many, many months now.
Take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the Indian government sources say that there is convergence with the United States on most trade issues and that they are, quote unquote, very close to a trade deal. Abhimanyu is here with the latest on this. Abhimanyu.
Well, so far, government sources have indicated that both the sides are positively engaged so far, and there are discussions which are continuing on technical issues. Technical discussions are underway between India and the United States, and both the sides are converging on most trade issues and are very close to a deal. The first tranche also looks possible as per government sources. Sources also indicated that the deal has not been finalized yet, even as India is facing one of the highest tariffs since August, and they don't see any new issues arising as of now, and they are hopeful of concessions on Section 232 goods. Several goods which were exempted earlier under Section 232. India is hopeful for further concessions on those goods, which will continue getting exported to the United States from India. Also, government sources have termed that this is not a conventional FTA negotiation, since the reciprocal tariffs which have been levied are not based on WTO norms. Otherwise, tariffs which are imposed by different countries on each other are imposed based on WTO norms, but government sources have termed reciprocal tariffs as something which are outside the ambit of WTO as far as the application of reciprocal tariffs is concerned. Sources also said that both the sides are bound by confidentiality to not speak about the contours of the deal till it finally gets announced, and both the sides continue to remain in technical discussions. So discussions clearly are underway. Several issues are being threshed out. No new issues are on the table as per government sources. And India is hopeful of exemptions on the Section 232 goods.
Abhimanyu, thank you for that update. On to the commodities market then. Manisha Gupta joins in with all the updates. Manisha, good morning. More profit booking in gold, but oil prices are on the rebound.
Oh, well, yes. Gold and silver have continued to decline. Remember, previous week was anywhere between 6 to 7% of a decline for gold and silver, but then both of these commodities were overbought and there is some profit taking that was finally seen. What has seen again, of course, has been the crude oil prices. We did see prices gain up by 7.5% in the previous week, a best weekly gain in 5 months. Prices are trading at a 2-week highs and continue to trade higher in the trade day today as well. $66 a barrel is where we are trading for the Brent right now. The markets are dealing with U.S. announcing sanctions on Russia's Rosneft and Lukoil, but it also is a deal possibility in trade between U.S. and China, and that seems to be driving many of these prices higher. Not just crude, if you look at the base metal prices, we've seen gains come in across board. Copper, for one, is trading at a 3-month highs. We've seen Beijing say that they will pause for a year for its rare earth export controls, and that clearly has been positive. Remember, copper also is dealing with supply concerns, whether it is from Congo, Dominican Republic, Iceland, Indonesia, and that seems to be keeping copper as a best performer within the metal space for now.
Indeed, Manisha, thank you for that update. We take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast from me and the team. Thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call sets you up for this action-packed day of trade on the other side.